We're live.
Are you leading the show? I mean,
No, I'm just telling you we're live.
You're
Yep.
so used to you're so used to talking to yourself.
I
On every
know. I
Sunday
just want to
morning.
go. I just want to start talking.
I mean, there's no bigger fan of Chris Werme than Chris Werme. So welcome in everybody for the good old live stream, a de facto Stay Green reunion of sorts to talk all things NASCAR playoff bracket related, trying to identify a little bit of value, some upside and opportunity over the 5-race spell that we will see on TNT. Werme, it's always good to see your smiling face, especially when we can talk NASCAR live and it doesn't have to be on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, I think some people think that maybe we don't talk on the reg, but
well, the way that you call me out regularly during the pre-race poll, I mean, if I'm not watching on a particular Sunday, you're not going to be able to get the action you want.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very aware of my ability to get down because of you. So, yeah, to the point where I just send we have a meeting with the U.S. consulate up here in Vancouver. I accidentally forwarded all that appointment information. I meant to send it to my wife. I actually sent it to Todd, and then he responds via text with something about the consulate. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I was at the U.S. consulate today. I'm kind of curious how Todd knew that, but yeah, we definitely are in communication. It's just nice to finally get back on air, especially live, and talk about this in-season challenge.
Yeah,
that
always fun. And like you said, I mean, we'll see what we got. I mean, 5 races, somewhat chaotic and unpredictable nature with Atlanta, a couple of road courses. Then we'll head to Dover, a track that we used to love betting, although I'm not all that optimistic about the tire compounds that we've seen lately on some of these single groove racetracks. And then, of course, a race that's been known to put all of us to sleep at Indy on the more traditional oval. But first things first, I know I was a little bit critical of the way this event has been advertised, the difficulty it is to try and find the bracket on NASCAR's homepage, the printing functionality. But Wormser, it feels like a huge missed opportunity that we're not breaking this thing up by region. We're not going 1 through 8 like an NCAA tournament feel. And more importantly, we're not naming the regions. I mean, how tough would it have been to go, hey, look, Denny is the #1 seed in the Richard Petty region. So-and-so is the #1 seed in the David Pearson region. I feel like it should be on us that we should take it by the bull by the horns and start to lead NASCAR in the right direction. By the way, I'm going to crack my beer in your honor.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let's get a poll going here. I mean, if we're going to.
I mean, because you went to the consulate.
This is my, yeah. Oh, you got a Labatt.
Canadian beer in your honor.
Yeah, I got my ciders going.
Cheers.
Cheers. Taking a poll.
Cheers all the guys and girls out there watching.
Yep, I've got 2. So, but I also agree. And the fact that you received, and then I had to chime in, so a little bit of pushback on whether Jimmy Johnson should be the name of a region. I'm sorry. If you've watched NASCAR since I started watching NASCAR, which is about 2010-ish, when the 48 took the lead, it was not like, oh, when is he going to give that up? That guy took the lead and he never let it up. And he went on to win a bunch of championships. So the fact that we got some pushback on that, I thought was interesting. I certainly think we could go ahead and name them. You know, Hamlin.
Look, it's got to be. I mean, what do we do? We start with Hamlin as the 1 seed. It's got to be Richard Petty, right?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah,
that's a no-brainer. So we're going to call that the Petty region, and anyone else who wants to follow our lead can go from there. The 2 seed, as I look through this ridiculous format, Chase Briscoe is a 2 seed. I mean, don't get me started on how this thing was seeded, but I'll give him credit for what it is. What are we going to go with there? Are we going to call that the Jimmy Johnson region, or are we going to go David Pearson for this second region?
I say we go Johnson.
Okay, so that becomes the Johnson region. Then the 3 seed, of course, as I look over this thing, which you would think I would commit to somewhat memory, Chris Buescher. David Pearson, I feel like should be the 3. Yeah. And now we get into a more hotly contested debate. Maybe people will chime in the comments. For the 4th region, is it the Dale Earnhardt bracket or is it the Jeff Gordon bracket? That's the $100 million question.
I will piss off Chase Elliott fans, but I will not piss off Earnhardt fans. I will stick with that. I will stick with Earnhart there.
All right,
but I do think that maybe next year we do go with a and Gordon's already involved in the sport. So,
so is Petty technically with Legacy Motorsports. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I don't think that Richard Petty's making a lot of decisions, whereas I do think that Jeff Gordon is making decisions. So we'll leave him out until he's fully removed from Hendrick Motorsports. But yeah, I like that. So we got Hamlin is the Petty.
Yep.
Briscoe is Johnson.
Yep.
Buescher is Pearson.
Pearson.
And
the Christopher Bell region will be
okay.
Dale Earnhardt. So, all right, look at that. We're already making progress here. And look, I know not every book has outright odds to win the challenge. DraftKings and FanDuel, I believe, both had them. Do shop around because I'm sure there are other books that I'm forgetting. But unfortunately, out here in Nevada, no Caesars, no Circa, no Westgate. So you have to look a little bit far and wide. But I think we should get right into it. I mean, rather than recap the season or any of that other bullshit, I mean, from a philosophy standpoint, when you look at this, I think the easiest way to handicap it, Wormser, is to go, look, you can't bet a short shot going into Atlanta. There's no reason to bet a 5-1, a 6-1, or 7-1, even if you feel, say, a Christopher Bell has a defined path, at least on paper, to get all the way to the finals at Indy.
Yeah, I think that these short drivers, if you look at Hamlin, Byron, Larson, Bell, and Reddick, all 7-1 or shorter. For one, Reddick, Larson, and Byron are all in the same bracket, are all in the Johnson bracket, in the Johnson region, excuse me.
There we go. You're getting there.
That's real difficult to have that many short prices in one bracket or in one region. And then, I kind of think about this as, okay, if a driver can just avoid ruin, meaning just run a normal race and have a DNF or avoid a DNF and advance, then okay, great. That's a major favorite. At Atlanta, you could just have Ty Dillon outrun Denny Hamlin, finished 8th. Hamlin has a relatively boring day, runs 11th, and no one's going to think twice about the fact that Ty Dillon beat Denny Hamlin. So in Atlanta, it's not just avoid ruin. It's avoid ruin, but also have a strong run. And I think that that's the kind of the element that people are forgetting, that, if you look at some of these drivers, like a Ricky Stenhouse up against Chris Bell. By the way, Ricky Stenhouse is a good super speedway racer. So this is not just avoid ruin, where you will see that in the second round, where you go to Chicago. You will see where if a driver that's a decent road course racer just avoids a DNF, there's a really good chance that they're probably going to advance. So to start with a track where avoiding ruin does not guarantee success makes it really hard to look at some of these favorites and say, oh yeah, I think this is a good bet. I think that there's value here.
By the way, before we get into some of the individual matchups and we look at and try and advance some of these drivers, just going through it, and you mentioned the Johnson region with some of the short shots. If this was the NCAA tournament, that would be the bracket of death. I mean, we're talking about William Byron as the 18 seed because of the way they did this, Ryan Blaney as the 7 seed, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe. I mean, some of the best drivers, not only coming into the season, but current form. You can make the case.
Are you going to make me say Carson Hocevar? You're going to make me say Carson.
Well,
I mean, come on. I'm sitting here staring at it.
I know. I'm staring at him going, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to. And Carson Hocevar. So some of the guys that come in with the best form and some of the fastest guys are going to be eliminated early on. Whereas when we look at our David Pearson region with Chris Buescher as the de facto 1 seed, it's him. It's Todd Gilliland. It's Zane Smith, Austin Cindric, Ty Gibbs, Justin Haley, Michael McDowell, and AJ Allmendinger. There's at least on paper a better path for some of those drivers to get to the Final Four. And I think as we handicap this, and it's going to get a little bit more evident to the guys and girls that are watching, just get to the Final Four. Get to Dover, give yourself a puncher's chance, and you're going to be able to ultimately earn off the ticket. But since we have the brackets in front of us, let's go left to right. We'll start with Denny Hamlin as the number 1 overall seed. I mean, again, I'm not going to say that we're condoning betting any of these head-to-head matchups, so I want to go on record with that PSA. But let's move Denny Hamlin ahead of Ty Dillon, unless you want to call for the upset there.
No, I think you can take Denny Hamlin there. Now, I'm not betting Denny Hamlin. Let's just say is a different if you're taking that bet, if you're betting that, there's only one side, and that's the Ty Dillon side. Like, I wouldn't be interested 100%. In laying minus 250, but just to advance in the bracket, we just want to make sure that there's a delineation between betting and the bracket. This is not an endorsement of a bet. We'll actually say, hey, I actually like this side if we're going to go there, but this is just advancing through the bracket.
Yeah, and I don't have Hamlin moving on to any round where I think you can earn off of that ticket, but more on that a little bit later. This one gets interesting because I think both of these drivers circle Atlanta, And if you listen to Brad K's comments in the wake of, I don't even know what the hell you'll call what unfolded at Pocono with the 6 car, this is a race that he has to believe he can go out there and win and secure passage into the postseason the same way that Kyle Busch does. You look at both of these guys, I think big picture wise, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if Kyle Busch were to get through Brad in Atlanta, Kyle's got a path that he could get to the Final Four with road courses in Chicago, where he's performed well, and Sonoma. So for this week, I'm going to say just because I think Kyle Busch has more upside in the bracket, I'd pick him to advance. But again, wouldn't bet him in a head-to-head against Brad. What's your take on those guys there?
Oh, I completely agree. Keselowski's been a donkey on road courses. I mean, the fact that he has no chance of making it through 2 road courses, in my opinion. He hasn't. Not only has he run poorly, he's qualified poorly. Where you can at least look at Kyle Busch and say he's done at least one of those 2 things well on road courses. So I think you advance Kyle Busch mainly because he does have a chance against Hamlin. At Chicago, and then you move on to Sonoma, where he's had some success as well. So I do like the Busch take there. Whereas Keselowski, if he's
one and done,
he'd be one and done. Yeah, I agree.
One and done there. Bowman and Logano, interesting because we know Joey is going to be stout at Atlanta. He has performed well on this particular track type. But again, I look at Joey and I think he's got a little bit of a ceiling. I know you have stronger feelings on Alex Bowman and potentially some of the upside that exists for a guy right now being priced 30-1 to win the challenge.
Yeah, I just looking at outright prices again, this is we're going to be jumping back and forth between the betting side of things and then the in-season bracket challenge. From a betting perspective, to see Alex Bowman sitting in that 30-1 price range, this is a guy that's won at Chicago. And yes, I know the SVG wasn't in the race, but this was not a fluke. He looked great in practice and qualifying as well. So I do think that Alex Bowman does have enough prowess on road courses to get it done. And if you look at the last 3 races at Dover, he also has the second best average running position at Dover behind Martin Truex Jr., who's not going to be competing in the event. So I do think that there's someone like Bowman that if he can squeak through this weekend, I think that this is the most difficult of the next 3 rounds for him. So if he can get through, maybe he makes it to Indy. I'm not super high on him at Indy. I'm super high on him to probably finish, 10th-ish at Indy. But I do think that if he can get through this round, there is some upside on him where you could potentially hedge once you get to that final round or even to Dover. Logano, man, he's just tough to bet against in these things because I think that they have an advantage when it comes to strategy. And we've talked about this with Paul Wolf. Here we are, Bowman, Logano. I could flip a coin. I could flip a coin this week.
Well, we think Bowman's got a little bit more upside. So for argument's sake, as we fill this out, let's move Bowman along. Again, we're not betting in a head-to-head at Atlanta, but we think Bowman at least has a little bit of a clear path. As we say that, Joey Logano will have an average finish for the first 3 races of 19th, and somehow we'll be talking about the 22 going to Dover. So we'll move Bowman along. This one for me is pretty straightforward. Not necessarily for who wins at Atlanta, but for a guy that I think can make some noise. You look at Bubba Wallace's price to win the challenge, 90-1 at DraftKings. Daniel Suarez, 70-1. Daniel Suarez, sneaky good on road courses, good on the street. So I think if I'm picking a winner in this head-to-head because of what I think future races can lead to, I think Suarez makes a little bit more sense. Agree or disagree, kind sir?
I don't. I mean, Bubba Wallace on a street course and then a road course. I mean, Suarez has won at Sonoma. So, this, I've heard a few things. I'm not going to mention any other podcasts or shows, but there is no trying harder. We're due. Concentrating more.
They're going to hit the gas pedal a little bit harder to try and get a couple more miles per hour.
If someone starts to say, I think that this team cares more this week or not, don't just go ahead and stop listening to that person because that's not a thing. The 99 and the 23 are not going to try any harder this week than they did last week due to this tournament. That's not a thing. Where I do find it interesting is, kind of the must-win scenario and how that will play into some of these races coming up. I'm just going to sit here and agree with you and say that Suarez is more compelling down the line. If you look at them in Chicago, you look at him in at Sonoma. Yes, way more compelling than the 23 in Bubba Wallace. I think once you get to Dover, that's where Suarez would probably run out of luck, and in my opinion, competitiveness. But for the argument's sake, right now, I like the 99.
All right, let's stick in this and let's go to the round of 16 and figure out who we're going to advance there. Denny Hamlin against Kyle Busch at Chicago. I'm going to take Kyle Busch there. So unless you feel differently, I feel like we can move Kyle Busch along to the round of 8.
The only argument for that would be that Hamlin has put it on the pole there, and he's getting better. Yeah, you're right. Put Kyle Busch there.
Kyle Busch into the round of 8. Alex Bowman against Daniel Suarez. Again, if both of these guys were to advance out of Atlanta and win their matchups, I think you'd love to be able to have a 30-1 and a 70-1 going head-to-head. But I'll leave it to you. Who do you think wins?
I'm going to stay with, I think Bowman has more upside here, and so that's why I'd like to go with Alex Bowman. Again, I think that Chicago, I'd give a slight edge to Bowman. He had a win there. We've also seen rain at Chicago both years. We haven't seen a completely dry track to see what, kind of a apples to apples comparison would be. But I do think Alex Bowman, I would give him the leg up in that.
So when we get to that round of 8, final thing on Daniel Suarez, although we don't necessarily think he advanced, again, numbers are the great equalizer. That's what we're looking for to build.
And this
is Suarez a bet, in your opinion, that's worth making it 70-1, knowing the potential path that's there if things were to break the right way for him?
He arguably has the best value at that number because you could hedge out at Dover.
Okay.
Right. You could play the other side at Dover, in my opinion. When you have 2 races left and you're sitting in a guy at 70-1, you could get your money back and hedge out some profit there. Because if he wins, if he beats Bowman, let's just say or wins that next round, we know he's going to be good at Sonoma. That's probably his best track of the 3 of all of the 5 tracks that we're looking at. So you're probably in a really good position. Once you get to Sonoma, you can just wait, because I think we would all agree that you have to win 3 of these in order to get into a position to hedge, or at least of any monetary value. And I think that 70-1 on Suarez is worth a potential nibble if you're looking to play some futures and capable of hedging.
All right.
If you're not capable of hedging.
Well, I think, look, here's my take. Hedging or not, I think you're going to have the opportunity. Should one of your drivers at a long shot price like this get to Dover, in my opinion, DraftKings will have a head-to-head matchup on those drivers.
Yeah,
so you're going to have an opportunity to have that hedge, and I think you're going to see these odds updated. So that gets us to the round of 8 before we pick this region champion in the Petty group. And for me, I'm going to cast my vote for your favorite driver in the sport that I bust your balls on nonstop. You look at Kyle Busch and what he's been able to do at Sonoma. I mean, he started 29th there last year, finished 12th. Started 12th there in his first year as a member of RCR, finished 2nd. A driver rating of 99 a season ago and 112. Werme, I'm going to take Kyle Busch to come out of this region and get to the final 4 ahead of Alex Bowman.
If Kyle Busch just stays in races, I would agree with you.
It's
just it's the early exit that I'm concerned with when it comes to this 8 team. They have an issue in practice, or they have an issue in qualifying. They start deep, and then there's something about this car that doesn't agree with Kyle Busch. And as long as he keeps it on the track, I like his chances at these road courses. Absolutely. I lose a little bit of confidence when we get to Dover, but I think until then, absolutely. I like Brad Keselowski there.
You mean Kyle Busch, not a Freudian slip for Brad K.
Brad
K suddenly back in the thick of things, according to Werme.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I get to make mistakes like this on my show, and no one corrects me, or I fix it really quickly, and then. But to have a smart ass like you on here is always nice. So thank you.
All right, Kyle Busch, we have winning what we'll call the Richard Petty region. Moving down the sheet for those folks that should have the brackets, I'd imagine, printed in front of them, hopefully taking copious notes as we go all through the Earnhardt region, where Christopher Bell is the 4 seed matched up against Ricky Stenhouse. We'll get there in a minute, but your 12 seed versus your 21, John Hunter Nemechek and Josh Berry. I mean, Wormser, John Hunter Nemechek, dare I say, coming into Atlanta with a little bit more momentum and consistency than what we've seen from Josh Berry. Do you see either of these guys being able to make some noise? For me, I think you're splitting hairs, and it's not worth spending a ton of time, because I'm not sure either one of these guys is going to be much factoring into the calculations after
No,
we
I
get to
would just
Atlanta.
say Josh Berry led a lot of laps earlier in the year here at Atlanta. Whoever wins
Okay.
this is probably an early exit here at Chicago. So,
Picking Josh Berry then to
yeah,
get
I
through
like
that
Josh
one.
Berry. I think the Fords work really well together, and the 21 has shown speed at times. I know that Nemechek has as well, especially as of late. But I think that the 21 working with the 2 and the 22 will have an advantage at Atlanta.
All right, so Josh Berry moving on. We don't see him factoring in. This one, in my opinion, feels like the biggest mismatch, at least on paper, at Atlanta. And I think it sets up nicely for NASCAR's most popular driver. And I kind of joke with you when we looked at the collection of 5 races that TNT had for this NASCAR challenge. You go through, what driver benefits from this potential 5-race little setup? Maybe this is the Chase Elliott portion of the schedule because you don't have to show race winning speed. You just have to be
Yeah.
consistent, have an average finish of 10th. And for me, I think he gets through Austin Dillon, barring something mechanical or unusual coming up this Saturday night under the lights at Echo Park Speedway.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You're not going to get any pushback. When you were saying this, we were having a conversation earlier about just the fact that this format just rewards consistency. I reached out to Highline Betting, and I said, who has the least amount of DNFs in NASCAR in this particular car? And he said Haley, Elliott, and Buescher, and that's drivers with 100 starts in the car. So there you go. As someone that hasn't won a ton in this particular car, still has the least amount of DNFs, if he can kind of continue that, I fully anticipate, Chase Elliott to run a solid race and move on.
Survive in advance. I mean, it's a little bit different than the way things set up when you handicap the NASCAR playoffs. You do have to have race winning speed the deeper you get into it. That may not necessarily be the case in this format. So Chase Elliott gets through to the round of 16 there. This matchup for me gets to be a little bit more interesting. And I was actually intrigued by the matchup price.
I was too.
You and I don't make a habit of betting super speedway racing.
Yeah.
And while Atlanta's getting a little bit more predictable than, say, Talladega or Daytona, I mean, you look at the price on Ross Chastain at 20-1 versus Eric Jones at 150-1. Look, I think Eric Jones wins this. I'm not sure Eric Jones is a threat to come out of this region, but I think both of us agree from a number standpoint that I'm nowhere close to where the betting market is the way Eric Jones is being priced in this head-to-head.
I agree. And I also, the more we talk about just that outright to win this thing, if Ricky Stenhouse beats Chris Bell, which could happen at a super speedway, Jones is a heavy favorite over Stenhouse if we go to Chicago. I think Ricky Stenhouse has been terrible on road courses, and Legacy's been very strong. We just had the same argument when it comes to Nemechek. They've been finishing strongly. So I would say, I like the betting side of Jones, both the matchup price at plus 160 to win this matchup. I think
that's plus 160-ish.
Yeah, plus 160. Ross should not be minus 220. I don't know that Ross.
Not on this track.
Very rarely should a driver be, minus $2 at a super speedway. Very rarely.
I mean, and so we wouldn't have.
I like Eric Jones.
If it wasn't for this format.
I like Eric Jones. Here. I like that plus 160. That jumped off the page to me when that opened. And I also think that 150-1 price just out of the. Now, do I think he's going to win? No. We're talking about trying to make money here. I think that you could make money on Eric Jones outright. Once you get to Dover, you could hedge out of it because he's a solid driver, in my opinion, the most underrated driver in NASCAR. If Chris Bell was not coming up through the ranks at Toyota, we could still see him in that 20 car winning a lot of races. So I think he got the raw end of the deal. You had to do it because of Chris Bell, but I think there's a lot of upside for that 43 car at that price.
And I think it's interesting. You lay out the potential path he would have if he were to be matched up with Ricky Stenhouse instead of Christopher Bell. In Chicago, Jones comes in as a substantial favorite, and his road looks to be that much more favorable. For argument's sake, though, do you want to make a case for Ricky Stenhouse advancing past Christopher Bell and besting him in Atlanta? We know Chris Bell, of course, won the Atlanta race earlier this season.
Yeah, I think, probably just got to go with Bell. I think there's just a big difference. If this were Daytona or Talladega, I would lean Stenhouse. I do, however, think that tires, strategy, and a handling race car matter a tick more here at Atlanta than they have in the past.
Yep.
So I have to give the nod to Chris Bell here. But like I said, if it was Daytona or Talladega, I would say that this would be more of a coin toss, but I think you have to give the nod to Bell.
So going to the round of 16 for the Chicago Street Course, the Grant Part 165 or whatever the hell they're calling it these days. Josh Berry against Chase Elliott. I'm making Chase by my numbers north of a $2 favorite on this particular track. So I think both of us agree that Chase moves on to the round of 8. Assuming that we do get Jones against Christopher Bell, I know we wanted to make a case and said Jones was live, probably if he drew Ricky Stenhouse. But I think on paper, barring some unforeseen circumstance unfolding or weather playing a role, it feels like Christopher Bell gets the best of Eric Jones on Chicago as well.
Yeah. Especially if there's weather. I mean, if there's rain, that's a I mean, that's a big difference. And you just look at Chris Bell in Mexico. I thought he was a distant second, but still a second place car.
So a little bit chalky here. We have the top 2 seeds in the region in the Elite 8 going to Sonoma. Christopher Bell against Chase Elliott. I think this would be fun if this was indeed the head-to-head we had, knowing that both of these drivers can be strong on this particular track type. You're the de facto expert, or so you'd like to think, between the two of us here. So I'm letting you pick the winner in this.
I would say at Sonoma, I'd give the edge to Elliott. I don't think that that's very debatable. Elliott's been, I would say, just very consistent on road courses. You look at Mexico City, he was definitely coming on. I mean, those guys finished second and third. And I would say there's certain times, a lot of the times when Bell has had success on these road courses, it's been great strategy by Adam Stevens and that 20 team. And I think that there's raw speed I would give to Chase Elliott. So if I would make him a slight favorite over Chris Bell in that matchup, just at Sonoma. I would not say at other road courses. I would say Coda would be completely different. But at Sonoma, I'd give the nod to Elliott.
All right. So we have Kyle Busch against Chase Elliott matching up in the Final Four in Dover. We'll get back to that particular matchup. But before we do, we have 2 other regions to try and get through. Hey, before we get into that, Worm, what's your overall takeaway for how NASCAR has set this up? Do we feel like they've publicized this enough, that they've marketed enough? I mean, candidly, I shared my thoughts on social media. I was extremely disappointed at some of the betting offerings that were out there for this from some of the main partners for the event. We can't even bet on odds to win the regional, the over-under for wins for individual drivers, head-to-head. I feel like this gave NASCAR a nice built-in excuse to try and approach the NCAA tournament. And while the betting handle might not have been substantial, it could have at least done something fun to spruce up the summer calendar where there's not a lot of sporting events that you're competing with, especially from a betting perspective for share a wallet.
Just look at the way that the drivers had talked about Prime and just the way that they approached just Amazon on Prime and streaming. And that was an uphill battle, right? It was an uphill battle to get fans involved and in viewership. And drivers were tweeting about it every single day leading up to the race, available on, Amazon Prime or whatever the handle is, Sports on Prime. You need driver buy-in. You need driver buy-in. You cannot have the most popular driver in the sport saying, "Do you win anything?" And they're like, "Oh, $1 million." He's like, "Oh yeah, I guess I want to win." What the hell is that? I would have sat Chase Elliott down and what are you trying to do? The other thing I would have done is I would have, I don't know how they did the seating. They did I think a very poor job of communicating how that was going to go.
Yeah. Don't get me started on that. So I'll let you continue your train of thought. And if you don't touch on some of my hot button issues, I am more than happy to blast NASCAR for the way they handled that.
Yeah, I think if I understand the idea of it's going to be these 3 races and your average finish over 3 races, but that even looks and sounds gimmicky for William Byron to be in the position. He's 18th. Does anyone think that William Byron should be seated 18th in anything in NASCAR?
Denny Hamlin missed a race. There were 3 races. He missed a race, and he's the number 1 overall seed. That's all we need to know.
That's a great point. How did they figure that? They just said, "Oh, he only raced twice, and his average finish was
average finish, not cumulative
1.5."
Instead of going, hey, look, instead of average finish, lowest cumulative or whatever it should have been. In my opinion, the way this thing should have been seeded, but the most wins, you're the number 1 seed, and if there's a tie for the most wins, default to points. Move on down the list. And the fact that SVG with 2 road courses in the first 3 in this challenge is not included in this particular format is an absolute miss from NASCAR, because we're going to be talking about SVG probably winning multiple races going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Like, this is also, Kyle brought up a good point, and I just figured out you can just show these. Also, why are these the tracks, the ones they chose?
Tell Kyle it's the Chase Elliott rule.
Well, it could be the Chase Elliott rule, but I also have another idea. Is the NBA Finals just ended?
Yep.
And so now your only competitor is baseball. And so you have more eyeballs. Maybe people are going to fill out a bracket and they're going to chime in. But once I feel like it wasn't because of the certain tracks. It was just the time window worked out to, well, there's not much else on in the dog days of summer.
And the
this
TV
makes the
network
most
as
sense.
Well. TNT gets all 5 races, so it
Sure.
made sense to try and have a unique gimmick around what they do. But we're right there with you, Kyle, in terms of how this was thought of. The other thing, and again, I love spending other people's money. $1 million. That used to be a lot that we awarded for the NASCAR All-Star race, 30 years ago?
Yeah.
You don't need to have an economics degree to understand $1 million doesn't carry the same weight and impact with these drivers when you look at their salaries. I mean, let's jack up the prize pool a little bit. Let's give out prizes to
don't even give someone $1 million for getting a perfect bracket. They're not going to, by the way, no one's going to have a perfect bracket. Just give the driver $2 million. You know,
let's
don't
go
even
a little bit higher. I mean, we can get up. There's got to be ways with as many partners as NASCAR has. And for each round that a team advances, that money should go to the pit crews or find something creative.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that should be as being a team sport.
Well, that also brings up another question and I asked this on Twitter earlier. When are we going to hear on the radio, hey, you know, we actually want to win this? Like, at what point? I don't think it'll be at Atlanta. No one's going to go. There's no one on the radio who's like, well, Denny Hamlin's not going to ask what Ty Dillon is going to do in order to adjust.
Denny
might. Bad example.
Denny might.
Okay, let's talk about 2 guys that are racing to get into the playoffs. Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski.
Much better.
Not one time during this race are they going to say, well, what's Busch doing or what's Keselowski doing? We want to adjust what we're going to do to potentially move forward to potentially win $1 million. So I think it is kind of interesting. At what point will they care? Is it the finals? Is it the Final 4? Is it the Elite 8? Like, at what point do drivers and teams say, hey, this is worth it to pay attention? If it's a playoff spot, I don't think it's worth it. And when is it worth it for Denny Hamlin? Let's just say it's Denny Hamlin versus Kyle Busch, and Denny has a chance to win stage 2 at Chicago. Now, that'll probably mean he's not going to flip. He'll take his playoff point and his 10 stage points, and he'll move on to the next week, but he could lose the in-season challenge. Does he go on the radio and tell Chris Gale, well, I kind of want to win the in-season challenge. Maybe we should flip the stage here and not take the playoff point. You know, what's more important? Denny appears to shit cash. So I don't understand. Like, the guy's a plane, a helicopter.
He does have an extra mouth to feed these days.
Oh, that's a good point. But that's the other element of this that I just don't quite understand is $1 million enough for these drivers to care? I just don't know.
The other thing is, too, how much is TNT going to lean into this? I think that's going to be pretty telling as well. Are they going to be talking to the crew chiefs and the drivers about, hey, look, you're matched up with so-and-so this week. You know, how much does that factor in? And I guess we'll get a pretty good indication of Atlanta on Saturday night in terms of the emphasis that they're placing on it in conjunction with DraftKings.
Well, you better not ask a driver that's on the cut line or needs a win. Because I think they're going to say.
I would definitely. That's exactly what I would do. I would go to Brad and Kyle. Don't ask them about the playoffs and where they set up right now with the way Brad's season is gone. Ask him if he's placed added emphasis on this 5-race stretch so he can win $1 million. That's what I want to see more than anything else.
I mean, I just think like a Larson Reddick, you know, hey, where are you at on this in-season thing? I feel like Larson would say, what in-season thing? Like, I don't know. Like,
Kyle Larson in a nutshell to try and do that. But yeah, just some of our thoughts there. If you guys have them, by all means, chime in, ask your questions, comments. We'll try and get to all that stuff towards the latter portion of the show. All right, Worms, are into the Johnson region. For those folks that are making notes and following along on their brackets, this is Chase Briscoe, where he's the top seed, the number 2 overall. And we can start with his head-to-head with Noah Gragson. And a little bit like we talked about Ross Chastain being a expensive favorite, I'll make the case that Chase Briscoe is overpriced here. And let's call for a little upset. How about Noah Gragson as a 31 seed knocking the 2 seed Chase Briscoe out at Atlanta on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think that I want that to happen because I think it's ridiculous that Briscoe's the 2 seed. So out of spite, fair. I will choose Gragson. And I also think it's a great bet.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a bet worth making, in my opinion, from a head-to-head standpoint. This weekend in Atlanta. What, you didn't love the fact that Chase Briscoe didn't have to use his full throttle and was still able to keep multiple car lanes in front of Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney for that final green flag run at Pocono?
Imagine saving fuel out front. Imagine saving fuel out front. This was not, it kind of reminded me of the Indy 500 this year, except the Indy 500, there was actually cars in front of the leader that helped him save fuel and helped it be harder to pass. There was no one out in front of Chase Briscoe. It was just open air and he was able to save fuel. So, yeah, and whenever I tweet something out about, I tweeted something out about the Gluck poll, and then I forget about this nice bubble that I live in where the best explanation wins, and I don't have to argue with just NASCAR fans that are irrational. Well, this one went a little viral, and I find myself just defending what I said and not having like a normal conversation. So as much as I like it when my tweets go viral, I do know that it adds stress in my life because I have to deal with people that just don't understand how to communicate properly. But ultimately, let's go with Gragson just because I think it's ridiculous that Briscoe is P2 in this ranking.
And the other thing I'll say is no, or at least I am not endorsing a bet on Noah Gragson at 130 to 1 to win this whole thing.
No, I don't like that at all. Yeah, that has no chance. I think Jones is very different. Jones is different because I think Stenhouse has a legit chance of beating Bell, and he could move on. And I do think that Eric Jones is a serviceable road course racer. He's not going to go out there and lead a bunch of laps and win, but I do think he could run, 10th to 15th place. And if that happens, we could see him at Dover.
Ryan Preece, the 15 seed against William Byron, the 18 seed. No, we're not going to call it an upset. If William Byron,
I love an upset.
Ryan,
I love an upset
as the lower seeded driver. But when you look at these two, your thoughts on the head-to-head at Atlanta, I know you're not going to sit here and endorse backing William Byron to win the whole damn thing at 5-1. That's for sure.
No, I'm not going to do that. Nor am I going to back William Byron in this matchup price. If anything, I like Ryan Preece. The Fords work well together from a betting perspective. Now, if you're talking about actually winning this or advancing someone in your bracket, I still think you have to lean William Byron. But from a betting perspective, you can't go there in the matchup. And I do think, Byron's been a little feast or famine here, but he does have a couple wins. I anticipate Byron to be strong. I think we advance him.
Interesting note, by the way, on this particular matchup at this track, 5 head-to-head meetings between these two drivers. And I say head-to-head meetings, relatively speaking. Ryan Preece has finished better than William Byron at Atlanta in 3 out of the 5 times they've come here in the next gen era. Why is that noteworthy? Because William Byron in 15 super speedway races in the next gen era has outperformed Ryan Preece in 12 out of the 15. The only 3 times that Ryan Preece has been better than William Byron has been.
Didn't Byron win those other 2 races too?
Oh, so look, yeah. So if William Byron either wins the race or he wrecks, but we'll advance William Byron past Ryan Preece. I don't think either of these are worth.
This is a great. Can you see the comments or can you not?
No, I see them when you put them up on the screen.
Oh, okay. This is a great comment.
Read them out.
That scrappy underdog organization, Hendrick Motorsports.
Everyone loves a Cinderella, Big Ross. Everyone loves a Cinderella.
That scrappy underdog organization, the underdogs.
Ryan Blaney, Carson Hocevar in Atlanta. And then in terms of overall prospects for either of these drivers to make some noise and put together a deep run, Blaney right around 15-1, Hocevar a little bit deeper into the pool at 25-1.
Oh, well, I actually think that this is Blaney's strongest kind of strongest track heading into the 2 road courses until we get to Dover. I mean, this is a coin toss, in my opinion, when it comes to Blaney Hocevar. Hocevar had a chance to win this thing earlier in the spring. I think Blaney's more consistent on these super speedways. To say that I have a strong opinion either way would be a lie. And I will go with kind of whatever you decide to go with and back it up. But this is a tough one, in my opinion, where I think Hocevar, I wouldn't be shocked if either one of them was racing for the lead. I would be less shocked if Blaney wrecked out, or excuse me, more shocked if Blaney wrecked out versus Hocevar. I know that's not saying much,
all right.
But
well, I mean, this is the chance that you're going to give me carte blanche to pick against Carson Hocevar. You damn well know I'm going to take it, Wormser. So Ryan Blaney, congratulations, you're moving forward into the round of 16. And, you know, at least on paper.
Let's pull up a comment here, because I think that this is kind of an interesting take. This is an easy place for the 47 to take out the 77. So does it happen?
Even more reason, Kevin. Even more reason, Kevin, that we're picking against Carson Hocevar.
Does this provide a better opportunity? I know that I said it wasn't going to happen at Pocono. Those speeds are too high, I think, in order to wreck someone. But, man, you're on a super speedway, close racing. Man, you could just shove them a little too hard. And
your hand just slips.
Yeah, you could. But this is also Ricky Stenhouse's chance to move into the second round of the in-season challenge. I doubt he would jeopardize that in $1 million. Which he has no chance at winning if he advances. So
this would be one of the bigger showdowns. Again, if this was an NCAA tournament, what we would call a potential Elite Eight Final Four matchup between Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick. Both of these guys relatively short if you want to bet them big picture-wise. Neither one of us is going to endorse a bet. But for argument's sake, when you look at Larson and Reddick, who wins in Atlanta in the head-to-head? And in your opinion, who has the chance to move forward and win multiple races? Because Kyle Larson at Chicago and Tyler Reddick, I think we'd both be bullish on. We'd both be bullish on these guys at Sonoma. I'd like Kyle Larson more at Dover if he was the guy that was there. But whoever gets through this one, I think they have a very fortuitous path to really make some noise.
Yeah, I agree. I think that whoever wins this kind of skates to Dover, in my opinion. I know that there's, Byron's a good road course racer, but I don't think he's had the prowess on Chicago and Sonoma that either one of both these guys have had. So, I mean, I don't know. Who do you think, Todd? I could go either way and support either side of this Larson Reddick. I think that Larson's more compelling. I think that he would draw more eyeballs. He would be kind of the Chase Elliott of this side of the bracket. So I would lean towards him, but I could see Reddick, I don't know, having a solid finish and running well at Chicago. I would, and then I
mean, the biggest question, here's the biggest question I have to ask for you. Do we think the way that Kyle Larson ran well on a super speedway back in February is a sign that he's learning to get better on this particular track type? But because before he finished on the podium with that third place finish in late February, I mean, you're looking at results 37th last September, 32nd last February, 36th last July, 31st. I mean, 4 finishes in 5 trips to Atlanta, all outside the top 30. So do we think Larson figured it out, or do we think that was a blip on the radar and we should lean Tyler Reddick here? My gut tells me Larson figured it out, but you know how things work in Atlanta. I feel like 23-11 bounces back a little bit. I would lean Tyler Reddick here.
There's also the element of Larson where he's kind of disappeared the last few weeks.
I'm telling you, here's the thing. You laughed at me, and I said, I think all of the emotional stress he was under and the wear and tear of the trying to do the double in the Coke 600 along with Indy, my opinion, somewhere along the way, you drain your battery down as much as Kyle Larson has. I think that's taking a toll. Do I think it's going to impact his opportunity to win a championship? Absolutely not. But I get the feeling that he's not necessarily fully entrenched the same way that we've grown accustomed to with the 5.
Okay. Yeah. And it makes it much easier not having Larson in there. Like also, so for helpful. Just my own sake, my selfish sake, it's easier to predict this thing without Larson around.
All right. So we'll take Tyler Reddick to move on there. So going to Chicago in the round of 16, Noah Gragson against William Byron. Byron would open a massive favorite there. Yep. So I think we have to move Byron along.
Yep.
And then, this one, in my opinion, relatively straightforward as well. Blaney against Tyler Reddick on a street course. Tyler Reddick. Wormser, we go to Dover. Byron against Reddick. I feel like it's William Byron, right?
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So,
and I think this tournament just sets up for Byron as well. If you're looking at kind of the, the guys that just run very consistently, you're seeing us kind of move Chase Elliott forward. You're also seeing us move William Byron forward. They don't always have the speed to win races, but they get solid finishes. And here we are talking about both of them making it to the Final Four.
Hey, one thing about Tyler Reddick, when we look at road courses and how he's done, Sonoma, of course, hasn't necessarily been his best. He did finish 8th there last year, but had a couple of finishes outside the top 30. Suffice to say, it's probably his worst road course that we go to during the season.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you worry about the wide range of potential outcomes that could come from him there? I mean, Blaney, 2 top 10s in his last 3 trips to Sonoma. So maybe we shouldn't necessarily just sweep with a broad stroke that Reddick gets through Blaney there. Just want to play devil's advocate as we talk through that.
Yeah, and there's been times when I thought Ryan Blaney looked really good in practice, but that practice never really translates to qualifying into the race. I think ultimately I would lean just Reddick in this.
Well, that's Chicago as well. It's more getting ahead when we look at how things will set up at Sonoma. Yeah. So if we have Reddick getting through Blaney, Byron against Reddick at Sonoma, I'm going to lean with the 24 there myself to get him out of this.
I am too. I just think based on consistency. And there was Reddick was almost a flash in the pan when it came to his dominance on road courses. I mean, he was there, he was dominant, he won a couple and then done. It kind of became this thing where he's a little bit overvalued when we go to these road courses, because we did see so much dominance really quickly, but then it was more of a flash in the pan.
Yep, not going to disagree there. So William Byron, only fitting that you win a region named after a guy who made his hay representing HMS. So
Kyle,
what you called William Byron the next Jimmy Johnson, so it's only fitting that William Byron wins the Jimmy Johnson region, right?
Reddick has 1 top 10 since April. Whoa.
Yeah, he's been, although last week at Pocono, again, we can always make a case.
Yeah.
He was a hell of a lot faster than where he finished. But you do wonder what's going on with 2311 in general. I mean, they all kind of missed the mark dealing with brake issues. I mean, Bubba's current form hasn't been great, so maybe we'll get an opportunity to back Reddick sooner rather than later this weekend in the outright market. Not how we're going to do it. So William Byron, you're moving through as the winner of the Jimmy Johnson region. And in the David Pearson region, look, this thing on paper is about as wide open as it gets. So we can have a little bit of fun here, and maybe this is where a potential Cinderella emerges. So we'll start with the 11 seed Michael McDowell against AJ Allmendinger. Both of these guys good on road courses, pretty decent on super speedways as well. Michael McDowell against AJ Allmendinger Saturday night under the lights at Echo Park Speedway.
All right, so we had talked about, more compelling storylines if we move a certain driver through. I'm going to go ahead and say AJ Allmendinger, because I'm not saying he gets to Dover, but he has been very strong at Dover in the past, going back to that 43 car. So I like AJ Allmendinger this week. I think that this is one where both teams have this 3 race stretch circled. Like, hey, we have got to get something done. And I'm not going to use I think the 16 is going to try a little harder this week. That's not what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that I think AJ Allmendinger can get it done on a super speedway in Atlanta. And then I also think he can get it done on road courses. So I'm going to go with AJ Allmendinger there.
I have no problem with that. By the way, because I love to call you out and to try and dispel some of the narrative. Care to venture what AJ Allmendinger's best finish is at Dover over the last, I
know it's been
5, 10,
bad, but he used to be
races.
Good.
Yeah,
he used to be good.
Used to be good. AJ Allmendinger did have his best finish at Dover, 13th in April of last year. That was his best finish at Dover since he finished 7th back in 2011. So don't get all in this.
That's what I mean. See what a great finish. I think you just proved me right.
He's trending up. He's trending up.
He's trending
33rd, 18th, and 13th in the next gen car. So AJ Allmendinger clearly going to be a force should he advance all the way to Dover. So Dinger, we're moving on in the round of 32 as he knocks off Michael McDowell at Atlanta. Ty Gibbs, still waiting for that first elusive Cup victory, although his form has been a little bit better. a driver that I know you and I are both sick and tired of burning money on. There's finally value, though, in this driver in the betting market. He's gone from opening most weeks at 12 or 14 to 1, opening at 50, qualifying well, end up closing 16 and doesn't really factor in. Matched up against...
it never factors in. Like, never...
He did finish third a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, that was a step in the right direction. But you mentioned Highline Betting sharing that Justin Haley has kind of been the model of consistency. I mean, Haley at 250 to 1, Ty Gibbs at 35 to 1. Can I interest you in a Cinderella story for Justin Haley to pull off the upset and maybe go to Chicago and wreak a little havoc?
Well, you can interest me in an upset against Ty Gibbs, but you certainly can't, interest me in a Justin Haley run to the finish at Chicago. Because
AJ Allmendinger is a guy that I have a ton of confidence in that's going to go out there.
Let me decide when the narrative fits the story that I like. I will go ahead and produce the narrative that I think fits my story, not necessarily someone else's.
I respect that.
I do think, I'm less confident in Atlanta than I am any other track. So I don't know Ty Gibbs. Okay, there's only one side you can bet in this, and that'd be Justin Haley. You can't lay minus 195 on Gibbs, but I still think Gibbs kind of gets it done, has a solid run, and beats Justin Haley. And Haley, I think, has also been, even though he's had great finishes, it's been the worst Spire car pretty consistently. We've seen speed out of some of those other cars. We have not seen it out of Justin Haley. Be really hard to back him, kind of at all. And I don't think he has an opportunity of moving forward after Chicago either.
Haley, in my opinion, honestly, at 250 to 1 would be the ultimate dart throw because if things broke the right way. When you look at the numbers on super speedways, he's actually gotten the best of Ty Gibbs in the 5 trips to Atlanta, 3-2, a limited sample size, of course. And if we widen the scope and look at super speedways in the next gen era, Ty Gibbs has outperformed Justin Haley in 9 out of the 17 track types. So a lot closer on paper than we'd be led to believe, but we will advance Ty Gibbs to face AJ Allmendinger in the round of 16. Moving further down the David Pearson bracket, Zane Smith, the 14 seed, 100 to 1 to win this thing, matched up against Austin Cindric at 30 to 1. Austin Cindric, very good at Atlanta. And Werme, this is my turn to spin a narrative. When I look at the big picture, and again, I'm not going to endorse a bet on Austin Cindric at 30 to 1. How fitting would it be, given what we saw unfold leading up to the Indy 500 with Austin's dad, Tim Cindric, being fired as the competition director on the Indy side, going into the most prestigious event on the IndyCar series, Austin Cindric drives into the final, and he's the one kissing the bricks at Indy. So we get a full circle moment.
Wow, that would be
at a track owned by Roger Penske if that came to happen.
That is a great story. And that's exactly what is this story. It should be a Disney movie, maybe, because I just do not see.
Well, I guess Cindric, if there's a driver that could pull off the Clark Kent look when Austin Cindric goes glasses during his interview and tries to turn to Superman on the track, I mean, maybe Austin Cindric could fill that part. But go ahead.
And Ryan said, and then maybe fails tech. So I would say this year,
that would be even better.
This year, I have been a Cindric apologist. I think that I've kind of taken him in top 10 markets as much as I've taken, anyone else. He does leave a little bit to be desired when it comes to his road course racing. When you looked at his Xfinity success, I kind of thought that this guy was going to come in and compete right away at every road course, and it just hasn't been there. However, the oval speed's been there. I think that Penske, of the Penske cars, he's been as fast as some of the other guys, including the 22 and Joey Logano. And I know Josh Berry has shown flashes of brilliance, but and then obviously Ryan Blaney, just week in and week out the fastest, but he can't get a finish to save his life. I think that Cindric has been the best on these super speedway races. I mean, he's going for a win. All of a sudden you're racing out front, you're going for a win, and you get wrecked late. I think that that's where some of this, just avoiding ruin kind of comes into play. I think Cindric could just have a normal race and just beat the brakes off Zane Smith. But if he's going for a win, you're putting yourself in a different position. And I don't think that they're sitting here saying we can win the in-season challenge. So we
No,
should.
I would agree. I would agree there. The one thing when I look at Austin Cindric, if you remove his 28th place finish at Atlanta earlier this year, where he led 47 laps and had an accident, I mean, this is arguably one of his best tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, top 12 or better in, going back before the next gen car. So for me,
Cindric's going to have a significant issue to lose to Zane Smith.
Yeah. All right. So we're picking Austin Cindric to advance there. And then this one, a little bit more intriguing than what the odds suggest. Chris Buescher, 16-1 to win the whole thing. That's not going to get a bet for me. Todd Gilliland, 200-1, not going to get a bet for me. But in terms of Atlanta, could we see an upset here for the Gleevers out there to knock off Chris Buescher?
Oh, I mean, probably not, but I wouldn't be shocked, right? This is another Atlanta thing where you can look at stats in Atlanta. You can say finishes or record. Who knows? You have to avoid a wreck. You have to be on the right strategy, and you need help as teammates. And I would obviously give a huge edge to Buescher over Gilliland, not by much when it comes to teammates, but I would say a lot of people are intrigued. I know that there's a lot of Buescher love out there in this market of, that 16-1 price. So
you want to go contrarian and take Todd Gilliland here? Go against
I
the
think
grain?
I think we have to go with Buescher because it makes it a little harder. Let's go with Buescher here.
All right.
Because that at least gives us a conversation about Buescher Cindric. I think that's a great matchup going to Chicago.
All right. Austin Cindric against Chris Buescher. More on that in a moment. AJ Allmendinger at Chicago against Ty Gibbs. This a heavyweight battle for a guy who has honed his craft on road courses, and Ty Gibbs has been very good on the Chicago streets.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the standings here because I think this is kind of important to understand is like where's their head at? And I think both of them are probably in a must-win situation.
Ty is definitely in a must-win situation.
Yeah, I mean, AJ's probably in a must-win situation as well. I don't see him. He's 17th in points. Does this even have the playoff thing? Because it has Josh Berry in 16th, and he's.
I mean, you know what it's like trying to navigate through NASCAR's website to figure out what the standings look like, trying to incorporate the wins and points. I mean, I try and spend as little time on that site as I can because it ends up confusing me and hurting my head more than anything else.
Like Josh Berry is in 16th, but he's already in. So why would they not have a playoff?
You mean the normal way to do it, to try and rank guys that are already in by wins with their points on one side and then show everybody that hasn't won and where they stack up in points? I mean, one would think that's a logical way to approach it.
Yeah, that would make this certainly a lot easier.
You want to pick Dinger?
I would have
you want to pick Dinger
here,
don't you?
I'd have to give the edge to Gibbs. I think Dinger is 2 checkers or wreckers. And when it comes to this, I think the consistency on road courses, do I think that they have the same odds of winning the race, but I think that Gibbs has a better chance of just having a solid run. And I think that that's pretty evident across many road course races that Gibbs has been a little bit more consistent. Now, that's not to say that AJ can't go out there and win the race. I think that him and Ty have the same shot to do that, but I think Ty has a better opportunity of just getting a solid finish.
That's fair. Ty Gibbs, moving on, winner of the round of 16 matchup against AJ Allmendinger on the Chicago Street Course in Challenge Round 2. The final matchup to break down for the round of 16, Austin Cindric against Chris Buescher at the Chicago Street Course. We know Chris Buescher has been the model of consistency when we go to road courses. Hasn't always shown the most in the way of speed, really, with an opportunity to necessarily compete for wins, race in, race out. But Austin Cindric against Chris Buescher on the Chicago streets. Who you got?
Ooh, that is a tough one. What do you think?
way to deflect.
I could make an argument for both. I feel
so.
Like
I think so. My feeling is that Chris Buescher has a higher floor in this particular race than Austin Cindric. So that's the way I would lean. Although if Chris Buescher were to open hypothetically minus $1.30, I'd be inclined to back Austin Cindric at a price tag in a head-to-head matchup at +10 or better.
Yeah. Okay.
that
Fair
was
enough.
out there.
Yeah.
So,
So I would agree with that.
all right. So we'll move Chris Buescher on into the Elite Eight to face Ty Gibbs at Sonoma. I'm letting you pick this one, buddy. Who's getting to the
Yeah, I'm
Final
going with
Four?
Buescher there. I'm
Chris
going with
Buescher.
Buescher. I think that he's shown some speed there. I thought he had a really good chance at he's had chances at winning there. I think that Chris Buescher, when it comes to road courses, is very solid at Sonoma. I think it's one of his stronger tracks. And I think that Ty Gibbs will struggle slightly relative to that 17 team.
All right, our Final Four for those scoring at home. Kyle Busch winning what we're dubbing the Richard Petty region, that one where Denny Hamlin is the top overall seed. Chase Elliott winning the region where Christopher Bell came in as the top overall seed that we've called the Dale Earnhardt bracket. It is William Byron, the Cinderella story, as the 18 seed, getting out of the Jimmy Johnson. Getting out of the Jimmy Johnson region where Chase Briscoe came in as the top overall seed. And then Chris Buescher, we're going to take to win the David Pearson region. Buescher, the only top overall seed that we've selected. He comes in as the third overall, riding a wave of great current form, both race results and qualifying. Before we get into breaking down the final three matchups that we have left, anything you'd like to get off your chest in terms of the way things have gone so far, what you're looking forward to from the challenge, things that you're a little disappointed in, or what we can kind of expect big picture-wise over the next 5 weeks?
Well, I guess if I just look back at, kind of the start to the season, I'm sick of losing money on Brad Keselowski. This guy looks great in practice, usually qualifies terrible, drives through the field. I add on live. I take him before the race. And then something unexpected happens and they can't seem to get a finish. So I just like to get that off my chest. When it comes to the in-season,
as Wob would say, this is a safe space.
It's been, just, I feel, and it goes deeper. I'm looking at it from a selfish perspective. Think about the people that work at RFK. I mean, these guys have been building fast ass race cars only to see things get thrown away. And would have won with an awful call by Jeremy Bullins is what Kevin's saying. I just think that there was just poor communication. I don't think you can blame any one person. I do think that Brad Keselowski has done the right thing and taken the blame. Ultimately, it's his call. He's the guy driving the car. I love that mentality out of Brad Keselowski, but
it's also on Brad for pitting when he pitted at Pocono that shuffled him back. Like, I'm not blaming his crew chief or anybody else for that.
Yeah, but when you hear pit and then you see cars behind you.
But you see the lights in front on the...
I know.
Yeah.
I
mean, on the
I
pace
agree.
car,
So
I mean,
I guess
this
that's
isn't
kind of where
Brad's
I'm at in
first
this.
race.
That's where I'm at in the season. Right now we're seeing that the Hendrick lull. We haven't seen Larson or Byron out there kind of dominating. We've seen them just kind of mid-year. I don't know if Chad Knaus is still a part of the organization, but this seems very Chad Knausian to just kind of, we're going to be average and then we're going to blow your doors off in the playoffs. So I think the season's been, I don't know. I feel like we've been right in our predictions, but hard to get the finishes. I feel like getting to the finish line has been very difficult this year from a betting perspective.
Variance has not been great, to say the least, in terms of getting some of these drivers home. So it has been one of the more challenging betting seasons for us on the NASCAR front in quite some time. But it's a long season and plenty of opportunities with good bankroll management to kind of hit a winner or two and turn things around a little bit. One thing I will say, and I know you speak about it all the time with your pre-race poll audience on Sundays, I have personally scaled down quite a bit on some of my head-to-head matchups.
Yeah.
That I'm betting year in, year out. I'm not doing anything, to be honest, with our audience on the Truck Series or Xfinity. I mean, a lot of books aren't even posting Xfinity head-to-head. So that, I think, has gone the way of the dodo bird, at least out here in Vegas. But from some of the head-to-head matchups, I think the market is more efficient than what it's been in the past. But even when you're getting 50, 60, 70, 80 cents of closing line value, I mean, just flip a coin with 5 laps to go when we get that late race caution and things completely get shuffled up. So maybe I'm crying over spilled milk, or people think, I'm being a little bit bitter here, but it has no doubt been a market that's different to navigate through now in 2025 than when I started doing this with you, 10 plus years ago. And it was like stealing candy from a baby.
Well, I think the other thing is that when you do when you take a side of a matchup that has kind of been lopsided all day long, and you do have a late race caution, or you have this late race variance, the car that's been struggling back there in 20th that you faded with a top 5 car, they're risking almost nothing to steal track position,
Yep.
and you have these drivers that the curse of the fast cars. There's been so many times where we've seen a car that adjusts. They lead all the laps. Look at William Byron a few weeks ago, where they lead most of the laps. They're adjusting on that car to, hey, I'm a little too loose or too tight. But that's when clean air, and then all of a sudden you find yourself back in dirty air, and you can't do anything. You can't manipulate the car in front of you. You can't make passes. So you see a lot of this late race flopping of matchups, and it's been very difficult because it is so hard to pass. If we were to do this back in 2016, 2017, you would still see the faster cars come to the front, even if they somehow did lose track position. So something about this car just allows for there to be low risk. If there's, let's just say, 25 cars in the lead lap and you're running 20th, well, it certainly doesn't help you or doesn't hurt you to stay out and just say, hey, we need 20 cars to pass us in order for us to lose track position, or for this to be a net negative for us. And I think you see that a lot. And the margins are very, very small when it comes to this race car. It makes it hard to bet matchups. Even when you have a guy pinned a lap down, they can take the wave around, or they get the lucky dog. And the next thing you know, if you're on the same lap, you can steal track position. So I think it's been very difficult. We have backed off on matchups massively relative to years past. And I think it's important to understand the risk reward. And right now, I think the reward is picking winners. But you still have to have things fall your way. I think Brad K last week at 20-1, that was the fastest car. I don't think anyone would disagree with Brad Keselowski being the fastest car, but it's still hard to win with the fastest car.
Nope, for sure. I mean, like Denny Hamlin says, if you're lucky in this sport, if you can win 30% of the races when you have the fastest car, you're doing things well, especially in the next gen era. So a lot of food for thought and things to think about as we go forward with the end of the regular season and the playoffs that'll be here before we know it. Semifinal at Dover. Looks like we have, at least on paper, what we've decided, 2 heavyweight matchups. Kyle Busch in one corner and Chase Elliott for a right to get to the final at Indy. I mean, Chase Elliott has been outstanding at Dover in the past. You can make the case that one of his better tracks, along with Martinsville. But Kyle Busch, no slouch there either. I was blown away when I was handicapping Kyle Busch. And you look at the fact that he's been on the pole, not once, but twice in the last 2 races as members of RCR when we go to Dover. Chase Elliott against Kyle Busch. Who moves on to the final at Indy?
Yeah, I'm taking Chase Elliott here. I think this is where maybe Kyle has one of those issues where his car just unloads and he's a little bit unhappy. He probably backs it into the wall in practice or qualifying and starts from the rear, maybe a backup car. I just think that Chase Elliott's been so stout here and consistent. One of those Kyle Busch poles was a rain out. So trust me, I want Kyle Busch to be back.
The other thing, too, I was going to say is this is a lot later in the calendar for Dover, so we could get hotter and slicker conditions than what we've seen. I think we've gone there each of the last couple of years in late spring, so it's been a little bit unseasonably cool. So maybe that gets to make things a little bit more.
I would say hot.
When we get to the concrete oval,
hot and slick would benefit Kyle Busch, in my opinion, as long as he has the race car. But here's the thing: when we're going to any track, you never have to question the speed that's under the 9's hood. And you do have to question that when that 8 unloads. And I think you have to give the nod to Chase Elliott because of that.
That is a fair way to look at it. So Chase Elliott, who hasn't won a damn thing and feels like an eternity, moving on to the final at Indianapolis for the championship round. And in the other semifinal, William Byron and Chris Buescher. Both of these guys, a good track record in the past. I know if you look at the finishes for William Byron, they won't blow you away, but the speed has been there. A little bit of bad luck and misfortune at Dover. Werme, we headed for an all Cinderella story with a pair of HMS teammates doing battle at Indianapolis.
No, I don't think we can do that.
Look at you taking Chris Buescher.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with kind of
all the time
the trendy favorite right now, and stick with Chris Buescher. I don't know. Maybe I have a little special spot in my heart for Chris Buescher. I just like him. I think he's actually a phenomenal race car driver. He's a guy that I'd trust with, if you have an average race car and need someone to kind of horse it home, I would say Chris Buescher is one of those guys that can get it done. I would throw Alex Bowman in that camp. I would not throw William Byron in that camp, but fortunately, William Byron never has a bad race car, so he has clean air most of the time and is able to kind of coast to the front. But I'm going to stick with Buescher here, and I think that RFK has enough speed to kind of get there. So it'll be, chasing Buescher. I did not see that coming out. But
I did not see that coming, and that's why this exercise makes so much sense. But again, Chase Elliott, 12-1. Not going to bet him going into the tournament. At least I'm not.
No.
Any more than I'm going to bet Chris Buescher at 16-1 going in. I don't think either of those numbers offer a lot of upside and opportunity. But for the sake of finishing this exercise like champions, before we get to any potential comments and questions that are out there from some of the loyal viewers who have stuck around for the full hour plus, who's winning this thing, Wormser? Are we talking about Chase Elliott being crowned a champion, coming home in 11th place at Indianapolis?
I mean, he probably could finish worse than that and beat him. Yeah, I don't know where. I'd be go with Chase.
All right, Chase Elliott.
I just that to me is based on just, you have Hendrick Motorsports. He qualified well at Indy last year. He qualified third, finished 10th. Buescher was kind of out to lunch, 23rd. There's the answer key right there. There you go.
The answer key. Perfect bracket, baby. Yeah. $1 million richer. You and I can.
I'm telling you, NASCAR, do away with the fans getting $1 million. No one's going to have a perfect bracket unless there's unless you can type in it or do as many unlimited ones as you want. Like, there's no one going to just give $2 million to the driver, because we need the drivers talking about this. You cannot have Chase Elliott asking, "Oh, do you get anything for a win?" Yeah, you get something for a win. You get a fucking $1 million. So you need more driver participation to talk about this and make it a little better.
I agree. And while I haven't calculated the math, and I'm not sure there's anywhere close to accurate, I'm going to give Wayne Cleveland, who chimed in the comment section on Twitter, who says the chances of a perfect bracket are 1 in 2,147,483,648. Honestly, that feels a little bit low.
That seems low.
If I'm being honest there. It does seem low, so you may have a better chance to win the lottery. But yes, getting a perfect bracket here seems to be a little bit of a fool's errand. But to come full circle, as we've broken it all down and we've seen that, we lean towards some of the favorites, given the track types that are there, do we see some betting opportunities? I mean, we mentioned Daniel Suarez at 70-1. Talked a little bit about Kyle Busch at 25-1 with a clear path. I use that term facetiously to get to the Final Four. Eric Jones, 150-1. I have jokingly said you can make worse bets than putting down, $5 on Justin Haley at 250-1. But when we look to try and figure out what's actionable from this exercise with a limited offering out there, what stands out to you?
Well, I'll say this. I'm probably not going to play anything before Atlanta, and you certainly shouldn't play anything before. I won't even fill out a bracket before seeing practice
until it's done.
Yeah,
you won't
I'll fill it out after retroactively. I'll post my perfect bracket. I think you should take a look at Atlanta practice before you even start this thing. Right? You have till the race starts, I would imagine, or whatever. Go ahead and watch Atlanta practice, because I do think that you can glean some information and say, hey, you know what? If there are some underdogs that have some good value, go ahead and take them. So is there not practice? Oh, there's no practice?
Normally at super speedways, we don't get
this
practice.
This is how little I pay attention to super speedway races. Well, never mind. That's a... Oh, my God.
Hey, if you want to get credibility in the NASCAR community, at least you know the schedule. We're talking about practice.
Well, because they don't practice, I don't know that I can. Yeah, I can't. So anyway, pick whatever the hell you want for Atlanta.
Well, they do qualify, Worm. You could wait till after qualifying. Maybe that's what you meant.
I mean, I'll take anything over no practice. Have another cider over there.
Have another cider.
Okay, so wait till after qualifying before you actually fill out your bracket would be my first advice. And then I think that I'm assuming that DraftKings will open up the futures market, to win this thing after Atlanta. I do think there will be value there once we have a little bit more information. Now, you might not get You might not get Eric Jones at 150 to 1, which I do like. That would be Jones. I like Jones and Bowman. Jones, Bowman, Suarez.
And I'll put Kyle Busch up there at 25 to 1 as well.
Yeah, and Kyle Busch up there. The thing with Kyle is you're probably still going to get close to 25 to 1. Well, maybe
just because
not.
Well, I mean, maybe you will if he's got to face Denny Hamlin, but I mean, I think Kyle would open as a favorite there. And look, I'll be completely honest. Normally, we know how they're deriving some of these future odds through mathematical calculations. But when I look at some of the pricing that's available right now, Denny Hamlin at 5.5 to 1, if they're going to offer head-to-head matchups on every driver's head-to-head from now until the end of this event, a money line rollover, essentially a 5 head-to-head matchup parlay, and Denny's going to pay a lot better than 5.5 to 1.
Oh,
so I'm not really sure where they're coming up with this pricing.
Or all the other favorites that are sitting in the same bracket.
Yeah, beat each other up.
Yeah, Larson, Blaney, and Byron. So, and I'm going to say it, Reddick and Hocevar and Briscoe. So,
yeah,
I think Briscoe can steal anything. You know, he's serviceable on road courses and he qualifies well and he's a gritty guy. So, Will Austin Hill. I'm not an Austin Hill guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's interesting about the Buescher bracket, because when you look at the outright prices, nobody is shorter than 16 to 1. So somebody is going to have to come out of there. And if it's not Buescher, you're going to have a pretty healthy ticket that hopefully you're able to earn off of.
You're going to have a healthy ticket that gets their ass kicked at Dover.
Potentially.
I mean, who's going to come out? Who could come out of?
Ty Gibbs, maybe.
Ty Gibbs would be the only one that. If
Ty Gibbs or Buescher probably have more than a puncher's chance, depending on who came out of the other bracket that they would face. Maybe there's a Cinderella story out of the Johnson region, but that feels like where you're definitely going to get a heavyweight unless something completely ridiculous happens.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I mean, in order to not get a heavyweight, it would have to be Gregson or Priest. Yeah, I'm throwing Hocevar in there as a heavyweight.
Oh, God. Only you. I mean, look, if you guys from Portage, Michigan, or that general vicinity are thick as thieves. So,
yeah,
I mean, I know you have to try and support your own if that's the case. But, yeah, I mean, look, it should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. It's a way to try and pick things up a little bit. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to be glued to some of the races because I won't be stateside for the second and third race of this particular format. But look, for as critical as we've been of NASCAR for things that we would like to do better, I do applaud them for thinking outside the box with the in-season tournament. I know it's not a fully novel concept. We've seen it in the NBA. For those folks who watch European soccer, they've grown accustomed to it as well. But there's all sorts of things you can do to drive incremental viewership. Again, if it's Werme and myself, jack up that prize pool, make it a little bit more lucrative, get the pit crews involved, offer up prize money each round that these guys advance, and, get a little bit more skin in the game. So it changes some of that dynamic that's there. And to the odds makers that are watching, as we know they pay attention when you and I get together to talk a little autos, be creative, think outside the damn box, and put up a more extensive odds offering. If you're not going to do it before Atlanta,
I think just an advance to the Final Four would be a great thing to have.
Yeah, do something. I mean, do something. Anything else you'd like to get off your chest, kind sir? Because this is about all I can handle. You roughly 90 minutes.
No, I'm good. Yeah, this is good for us. An hour and 18 minutes. Whew, man, I'm going to be totted out for a while. So
look, I mean, now that I know what your numbers are with the U.S. consulate, I can call ahead and make sure that you're never able to set foot on American soil in the immediate future. So advantage me. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Be nice to me. Remind your wife. Remind your son as well of that factoid. But it's been a lot of fun. Want to thank everybody who tuned in for a de facto Stay Green reunion show of sorts. I'm sure Chris and I will come up with some creative ways to get involved doing some more content as the season continues to progress. But best of luck to all of you, the loyal guys and girls who tuned in. And Werme, I'll give you final word, buddy.
Nah, I mean, hopefully our bracket looks good. I guess I could fill one out just on the off chance.
Do you have a pre-race poll?
Oh, no, I'm not doing the poll this week. No.
Okay.
So no poll. This is a full boycott of super speedways.
Well, the fact you didn't know there was
I'll be back in Chicago. I'll be in Michigan for the 4th. So I'll be doing it from wherever the hell I'm doing it from. But I will do the poll at Chicago. And yes, we will probably be betting. Hopefully there's no rain and we can just get a normal race where we're not going to get normal prices, though. Unfortunately,
SVG goes off as a 3-2 favorite.
Yeah. All right. To everyone, thanks for showing up. We'll see everybody later.
You got it, guys and girls. Thanks again.